There is a specific kind of silence that settles over a kitchen table when the monthly bills are spread out under the glow of a warm lamp. It is not the silence of poverty, but the silence of calculation. For millions of Americans over the age of 45, this ritual has changed. You have done everything right. You stayed employed, you contributed to your retirement accounts, and you watched your home equity grow. Yet there is a persistent nagging sensation that the ground beneath you is no longer solid. You are witnessing a phenomenon that doesn't quite fit the terrifying headlines of a 1970s collapse, nor the exuberant growth of the late 90s. We are entering the era of stagflation light. It is a slow, quiet erosion of purchasing power combined with an economic engine that is beginning to sputter. And if you are not careful, it will be the greatest thief of your golden years. Before we dive deep into the mechanics of this shift and how you can position your portfolio to survive it, I would like to invite you to join our community. If you value sober, data-driven financial analysis without the sensationalism found elsewhere, please consider subscribing to the channel. It ensures you stay informed as these economic shifts accelerate. To understand our current predicament, we must look past the official consumer price index. While the government suggests inflation is cooling, your daily experience says otherwise. The cost of essential services, insurance, healthcare, and property taxes is not just rising, it is resetting at a permanently higher plateau. This is the first pillar of stagflation light. We are seeing a divergence where the price of stuff, like televisions or clothing, may fluctuate, but the price of life, the non-negotiable costs of maintaining your standard of living, remains aggressively high. Simultaneously, the aggressive growth we saw post-pandemic is fading. The labor market is softening, and the higher for longer interest rate environment is finally catching up to the corporate world. For the middle class, this creates a pincer movement. Your expenses are locked in at a high rate, while your primary engines of wealth, namely your home and your 401k, face a period of stagnant or unpredictable returns. The structural revelation that most analysts ignore is the transition from a debt-fueled growth economy to a debt-servicing economy. For decades, low interest rates allowed the United States to mask structural weaknesses. Now, the bill is coming due at both the federal and household levels. When the government spends a significant portion of its tax revenue simply paying interest on its debt, it loses the ability to stimulate the economy during a slowdown. For the individual investor nearing retirement, this means you can no longer rely on the Fed put, the idea that the central bank will always step in to save the markets. We are moving into a cycle where the cost of capital matters again. This transition is painful, and it marks the end of the passive wealth accumulation era that defined the last 15 years. This shift requires a fundamental psychological pivot. Many people in their 50s are still playing a game that ended in 2022. They are chasing growth in overvalued tech stocks or sitting on a primary residence they believe is a liquid ATM. But in a stagflation-light environment, liquidity and cash flow are king. If your wealth is locked in illiquid assets that are losing real value against a backdrop of 5% structural inflation, you aren't building a legacy. You are managing a decline. Understanding the difference between nominal gains and real, inflation-adjusted preservation is what will separate those who retire with dignity from those who are forced back into the workforce in their 70s. If this level of analysis resonates with you, and you want to protect what you've spent decades building, please take a moment to subscribe. Your support allows us to keep producing these deep dives into the mechanics of our changing economy. The practical implication for your life is a need for radical honesty about your burn rate. In a high-inflation, low-growth environment, the traditional 4% withdrawal rule is under immense pressure. We are seeing a massive squeeze on the American middle class because we are being forced to pay premium prices for a standard life. The market is currently pricing in a soft landing, a perfect outcome where inflation vanishes and growth continues. But history suggests that the path is rarely that smooth. The risk isn't necessarily a sudden crash, though that is always possible, but rather a lost decade of flat returns paired with rising costs. This is how wealth is truly lost, not in a single day of panic selling, but in 10 years of subtle compounding losses. As we look toward the remainder of the year, the strategy must move away from speculation and toward resilience. We must look at assets that have intrinsic value and the ability to pass on costs. We must reevaluate the role of fixed income in an environment where the dollar's long-term stability is being questioned by global markets. It is about building a financial fortress that does not require a booming stock market to remain standing. The era of easy money is over, and the era of the discerning investor has begun. This transition is not a reason for panic, but it is a demand for preparation. As you sit at that kitchen table tonight, look at your balance sheet not as a collection of numbers, but as a map of your future freedom. The decisions you make in this transitional period of stagflation Lite will echo for the next 30 years. The world is changing, and the old rules no longer apply. It is a quiet shift, an unsettling evolution of our economic reality, but for those who are paying attention, it is also an opportunity to pivot toward true stability. Thank you for spending your time with me today. If you found this perspective valuable, please subscribe and share this video with someone who is navigating these same concerns. It is the most meaningful way to support the work we do here. Stay observant, stay disciplined, and remember that wealth is not just what you earn, but what you manage to keep.